Hello guys, this is Brian Tubbs coming at you with another video. Today is going to be a quick, simple video. I'm going to be talking about patterns, cutting out patterns for your sculpture pieces. Like this piece of wood here that you see is this 1/4 inch. They call it sanded plywood. So it's 1/4 inch. And so what I did was I just went to Menards and got a 4x8 sheet. I ripped it down the middle, so I made it I have a 2x2, 2x8 here, and I have another 2x8 over by my storage bins. So when I get ready to cut out more patterns, I'll have that other piece, and I'll have some more on this piece. So the reason I came up with this idea is because whenever I'm cutting out like a sculpture like Reaching, or one of those sculptures, and both sides have to be pretty much identical before you put the middle sections on and all that stuff. They have to be pretty much identical. It was always difficult cutting out the first piece, like for the upper portion. So I'll put a picture of Reaching Up, and like for the upper stainless portion, one side had to be identical to the other side. And every time I cut out the Reaching piece, where it has the arc to it, that arc would always change. Sometimes it would be more rounded, sometimes it would be slightly flatter on the outer arch of what I'm talking about. I could never get it the same. And so if I cut one piece out and it had a nice rounded arc to it, the other piece that I cut out would be a little bit more flat. So the piece with the nice rounded arc, I would have to take that piece down to the piece that was more flat, just to make them even. And so I've been doing this piece for some years now, and that's the top piece. And then when I get to the bottom piece, the core 10 piece, it was the same thing. I would cut one piece out, sand it down and everything, and I would lay that piece on top of the metal and trace it. But then when I put them together, they still were not exactly right, because whenever I would cut the first piece out, I might want to write a nice arched piece, but I would go a little bit flat in certain spots, so I had to kind of compensate for that and bring everything else down to that. So I got tired of doing that. And it's not just the Reaching pieces, multiple pieces that we do, that has a lot of organic lines and stuff to it. And I just got tired of having to constantly fight and do a lot of extra grinding, trying to match one to the other and all that stuff. So I just came up with the idea of, now there's another guy, other videos out there, but they use like cardboard and stuff like that, but they don't do what I do. They do like little small stuff, like car parts or whatever. But when you're doing like larger sculptures, cardboard was not going to do it for me, because when you lay that cardboard out on your sheet metal or on your metal, you got to clamp it somewhere. And running the heat that we run to to cut through some of this a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch plate, by the time I got from one end to the other, that cardboard would probably be burning up on fire. So I said I can't use cardboard. And then someone else came up with MDS. I think it's MDS. I think it's something like MD something. MDF, I think it is. They were saying use that type of material, which was fine. But then when I went to the store and looked at it, I saw a lot of the edges were, banged in and whatnot, because it's kind of a soft, almost like a pressed cardboard material. That's what it looked like to me. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But I said, nah, that's not going to work. So I kept looking around, kept looking around, kept looking around. And then I saw in there 2x2 sections. I was at Home Depot at the time. I noticed some really thin plywood. Because they had, of course, they had the thicker plywood, but I said, nah, I don't like that. That's going to be too heavy to move around. I just want something that's lightweight, that's going to be somewhat durable. So after I make, 100 cuts, it'll still be, fairly decent. If not, I'll just have to cut out something else. But I didn't want to have to be cutting through 1/2-inch plywood. So then I looked around, like I said, in the 2x2 section, I saw a really thin sheet of 1/4-inch, they call it sand, S-A-N-D-E plywood. And Menards called it sanded, S-A-N-D-E-D. So I'm assuming it's the same stuff. So I looked around at Home Depot, and I can't remember if I think I saw it. I did see it. A 1/4-inch sand plywood, a 4x8 sheet, was $30. So I was just about to buy it, and I said, wait a minute, let me just check Menards. I checked Menards, they had it for $20. So I said, okay, I'm out of here. So I went over to Menards, and I found it in their, plywood section. And they happened to have it on sale that day for $19 and some change, whatever it was. So I was about to buy the sheet, but then I asked the lady that was there if they could put it on their saw and rip it, right down the middle. I wanted two 2x8 sections, and she said, no, Menards don't cut anything. They just have a chop saw that the widest width they would be able to cut is 12 inches. So they just chop what they have. Because Menards and Lowe's, not Menards, but Home Depot and Lowe's have a saw that they'll just either rip cut it, or they'll cut it, up and down. So I said, my goodness, they don't have they can't rip it for me. So I said, okay, I'm gonna have to go all the way back home to get my saw. I had just bought let me grab this saw. I just bought this saw. It's a 5.5-inch blade circular saw by Ryobi. And I'm sure in the video, some of my videos, you guys have seen me with the Ryobi drills. I have a Ryobi Impact. I have Ryobi everything. And it just uses the same 18-volt battery. So I just stick it in and fire it up. And so I was headed home, and this is about 15 miles from my home to Menards, and from my home to Lowe's and Home Depot, about 6 or 7 minutes. So from Menards all the way back here, and then to go back in traffic and all that stuff, I said, man, I might just wait until the next day. But on my way from Menards, I remember my friend Daniel, he's a master plumber. He has all kinds of tools, anything you can think of he has. So I remember he had some saws like this. So what I did was I went to his house. I was going to sneak into his garage like I normally do, grab one of his tools and go back to Menards, put the tool back before he got back home, because he always wanted to charge me rent for using his tools. So I got to his house. Now he lives about five minutes from Menards. So I got to his house, was walking to the back of his backyard and go through his gate. I didn't see his van, his work van, so I thought he was gone. So as I'm walking up to his gate, he comes out of the gate and asks me, what was I doing? Why was I there? He has cameras everywhere, so he saw me approaching his house in my car, and he come walking out with me to find me, to let me know that I wasn't sneaking. So I got his saw, went back to Menards. While I was in the store, I had my ruler, my tape measure, a pencil. So I went in there and marked out the center. I took another piece of the plywood, laid it on top of that piece, and made my straight line. Took it to the cash register, paid for it, went outside and used that saw. I didn't use a straight edge or anything. I just used my eye to follow that line because it didn't have to be perfect. Made the rip cut. Took his saw back, brought it home, and I started laying up my cardboard patterns from reaching. That's the first one I wanted to do, was reaching. So I took the cardboard, laid it on the plywood, traced it with a black, Sharpie, and I got a jigsaw and just traced the line all the way around, and then after I cut it out with the jigsaw, I took this orbital sander, and I was using 80 grit sandpaper on an orbital sander, and I just took this and just did all the outside, and I mean it was sanding almost like butter. I mean, it had no issues with it. I think I used 2 80 grit pads on this to finish this out. The second 80 grit pad is still good, so I can still use it for my next template. But this is what I came up with. This is the top of reaching, that stainless steel part. And then this is the bottom portion. So, and this is like I say, just 1/4 inch thick sanded plywood. It's nice and firm. It doesn't flop like cardboard. If I hold the cardboard up, it will flop on the edges and all that kind of stuff. And it's lightweight. So I'll put it up on the storage area where I have my cardboard templates now. So I'll be taking majority of those cardboard templates and turning it into the plywood templates. And so what I did then was I took the plywood template, put it on the metal, clamped it down, and took the plasma cutter and just traced the cardboard template all the way around. Took that piece, the first piece of metal off, put this back on the metal, traced the next one, and I put those two pieces together. They were identical. I should have done this a long time ago. I kept saying I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, but I never took the time to do it. So what I'm going to have to do now, like I said, is get some of my other pieces that are more organic pieces that I have, lay the cardboard template out, trace it onto the plywood, cut out my jigsaw, and just smooth the edges down with this orbital sander. And I'll just put the names of the pieces on it so I'll know exactly what I'm doing when I pick them up, and just put them on the metal and just move on from there. So now what you want to think about is, say if my cardboard template was this width. Now lay this on the metal. My plasma cutter. Let me show you real quick. All right, so just get a little closer so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. So if my cardboard is the width of this, and I want the metal to be this same width when I'm finished cutting, I can't leave not the cardboard, but my plywood. I can't leave the plywood the same width as what I want the finished, sculpture pieces to be. They have to be narrower, because on my plasma cutter, on the tip, it has this standoff on it. And this, from the center of the hole to that tip, to this edge out here, the center of the hole to this edge here, the standoff, is right about a ½ inch, closer than ½ inch. So if I want my finished metal piece to be the width of this, and I take my plasma cutter and put it against this to cut, I'm going to have an added ½ inch on this side, an added ½ inch on the other side. So now my piece has just grown widthwise a whole inch. So what I have to do, I didn't do it on this first piece because I wanted to make reaching a little bit wider anyway, this way. But on my other pieces that I want to keep those, dimensions, I'm going to have to cut the cardboard a ½ inch thinner on that outer wall here, and a ½ inch thinner here on this wall here. So I'm going to take about a ½ inch off there, a ½ inch off here. So when I lay this on the metal, put the plasma cutter on it, this standoff in the tip will make up for that ½ inch that I took off of this. And so in the end, it'll be where I want it to be. Just say if it's 4 inches, like say for example, if we're doing the piece prism, the triangle piece, I like to keep that at a certain width. Just say 3 feet at the top, going down to a point. If I use this on that piece and I don't bring my cardboard in a ½ inch per side, I'm going to now add an inch to that piece prism, which I don't want to do because everything lines up based on the dimensions I have now. So when you make patterns like this and you're using a plasma cutter, you always take into account from the point of your plasma tip to the standoff. You got to get that measurement. Or if you have on your plasma cutter what's called drag tips, where you don't need a standoff, you can just take the tip of your plasma cutter, lay it on your piece, and make the cut. Then you just have to measure from that hole to the outer portion of your tip. I mean, it could be a 1/16, it can be an 1/8 of an inch, but you have to account for that. Unless you just don't, that doesn't make a big difference to what you're doing. That's fine. You can just use your drag tip and pull it. And if it doesn't make a big difference with your standoffs, you're not worried about that ½ inch on each side. You're not worried about adding an extra inch. Then you don't have to worry about taking your measurements down, an inch in total. You don't have to worry about that. But just for what I'm doing with certain sculptures, I have to have that. They have to be exact to what they are now. I can't have them, oversized. And so So I just want to show you guys a piece. This is the actual metal. This is the upper portion for reaching. It'll be on the sculpture, it's in kind of in this position. And you have the donut in this section here. So by using a template, it's a little bit wider than it normally is, which is fine because, like I said, I want to add a little bit more width to it, make it a little bit taller, and so when people pay the money that they pay for it, they feel like they're getting something. And so by using the template, all the pieces that I cut out are the same. They might be slightly off, just in a couple little spots, but I take my grinder and lay them all, put them all together, clamp them together, and just grind them all at the same time, and just smooth out any little high errors or whatever it might be. But overall, it came out really well with the template. I mean, it hasn't came out that nice, never. This is the first time it's came out evenly like that. Like I said, it's always off somewhere. All right, guys, so that's really what this video is about. Just making a template. And I think that this wood is going to, this 1/4-inch sanded plywood is going to work out, because when I was making my cuts, I mean, it was so smooth. It has a few little burn marks on it, but the edges are still really smooth. I can run my hand over it. No splinters. There are no divots or anything like that where the plasma cutter will get locked into somewhere. So it just worked out. All right, guys. So that's going to do it for this video. And I'm not sure what I'll be doing on the next one. I might get started, tacking up, reaching. I'm not exactly sure yet. But whatever it is, I'll be doing something. Hopefully that'll help you guys out. So I guess the takeaway from this video is I didn't use cardboard. I didn't use the MDF. I just thought that after seeing it in the store all banged up like that, I just didn't think it would hold up that long, in this environment. And so I really think that the plywood, whether you get 1/4-inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, whatever you decide you want to get, and you sand it down good, I think it'll work out for you. But I really like this 1/4-inch. And another thing with the 1/4-inch is when I was taking my plasma cutter along the side, the plasma cutter never jumped up the wall and came on top. And what would happen when I was using, when I would cut the first piece of metal out, sand it, grind it down, all that stuff, lay it on the metal, clamp it down to trace the second piece, sometime when you lose focus for a second, your plasma cutter will go up that wall of that metal and come out on top of the metal and cut a hole in your, or cut a line or hole in your good piece of metal. That piece is on top because it jumped the wall, because you're talking about like 1/8 of an inch. So when you're pulling it, sometimes it will jump on top. But with this 1/4-inch wall here, I never felt my grinder come all the way up to the top. It started coming up a little bit, but since it had a 1/4-inch to go all the way up that wall, it never made it to the top. And by the time it was getting toward the top, I saw it and I pushed the plasma cutter back down to the base metal as I was dragging it. So that's another benefit of having, 1/4-inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch. Your plasma cutter won't jump up on top of the wall and cut a hole if you're using, metal. Even if you're using this type of material, it can still burn a hole in it. So I'd rather not get that, the plasma cutting into this. So that 1/4 wall helped. All right, guys, so just give you something to think about when you, if you decide to make templates. And like I said, it's going to do it for this one. and I hope to see you guys on the next one, where I'll be doing something, trying to figure out, new ways to help you guys. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. And as usual, peace out.